Our next session is another fireside chat on the topic Spotlight on AI for a Better Normal. In the last 15 months, we have witnessed how AI has grown deeper into our society. Through this session, we will highlight how the world can come together to use AI effectively to combat some of the existential challenges, ensuring business continuity for enterprises the world over and making society resilient in the face of crisis. Our speaker for the session is Deep Nishar, Senior Managing Partner, SoftBank Investment Advisors. And moderating this session is Vikram Chandra, founder, Editor G. Vikram Chandra is a leading Indian journalist and a founder of Editor G, a platform for personalized video news. He is the former consulting editor and CEO of NDTV from 2011 to October of 2016. He has been called one of the top journalists in India today and in popular press. It's a pleasure to have you both here with us this afternoon. Over to you, Vikram.
Hello, everybody. This is a really exciting fireside session to be having. AI as a catalyst for a better normal. Now, when we're talking about a better normal, it certainly has to be a better normal than what we've been going through for the last 18 to 20 months. So that hopefully will happen. But even after that, once the world recovers from all that we've seen with the pandemic, is it going to be better than what used to be there before this entire crisis hit us? And is AI going to play an important role in that? Who better to be discussing that with than Deep Nishar? I'd almost say the legendary senior managing partner at SoftBank. He's done fantastic work in AI, genomics, biotech, you name it. He's one of the people out there who really understands what is happening and what the future holds. So, Deep, it's a pleasure to be talking to you. And I just wanted to start off by putting that first question to you. Are we going to see a better normal? And is AI going to help in that?
Thank you, Vikram, and it's a pleasure to be back at NASSCOM after a hiatus of a couple of years. As you mentioned, the last 18 or so months have been very trying for all of us. And absolutely, the new normal will be better. There's no question about it. Because, in general, the human race has always been progressing towards a better future for the most part. As we talk about AI, I think it's very helpful for us to maybe level set what we are talking about, because it's become such a common phrase and a common term that sometimes we lose meaning. So AI and people use machine learning, deep learning, neural networks, etc., very interchangeably. But those are all components of what we would call AI or artificial intelligence. And it's artificial because it's not innate in a human being. It's in some software that we write. And it's intelligence because it's trying to do things that a human brain would try. For example, if I read a story about animals to my 3-year-old niece and showed her a giraffe, and a week later she went to the zoo, even though the giraffe in the zoo looks very different than what's in her storybook, she should be able to point out and say that's a giraffe after just having seen that giraffe once or twice in a storybook. That's the intelligence part of it. And as software becomes more and more like that, where it's not rules-based, but it becomes learning and self-learning, that's when software becomes very powerful, and that will lead to a much better normal.
Let me just put it to you, right? When people are talking about the role that AI is going to be playing as you go forward, you have the skeptics who say we've seen AI winters in the past, and this is going to be another AI winter. And everyone keeps talking about how great AI is. We've heard it for 20, 30 years. Nothing's going to happen. So that's the skeptics. And then there are the people who say, well, maybe AI is going to become too good and it's going to wipe out the entire human race. So sometimes, that you hear both sides of it. What's the reality?
Yeah, Vikram, and that's right. In general, any debate will have two bookends, and the two extremes. One will be, that things are going to be really bad, and one that things are going to be really amazing. I'm more of a centrist, and I'm more of a pragmatist, having worked in this field for years. And you're absolutely right. There were AI winters. So, 30 years ago, when I was in graduate school studying things like computer vision and systems theory, no one wanted to go and get their PhDs in these fields because it would take forever to get the data. The compute power wasn't quite capable, and it took a while. Then it turned out that we needed breakthroughs in our algorithms of the software. So deep learning was one such breakthrough that came about 15 or so years ago, and that completely catapulted the world that we live in. I believe that, we definitely are not going to have an AI winter. That's pretty much there. And the reason for that is that AI is now becoming like the oxygen in the air of software. Okay. We all have air around us as human beings, but oxygen is the key ingredient that makes that air very valuable for us to breathe. Similarly, all the different AI techniques, whether it's machine learning, deep learning, neural networks, genetic algorithms, etc., they are becoming quickly the oxygen in that air of software. And without it, software just doesn't work. And I'll give you examples that tell you why we are transforming towards this better future. So Vir Bio is one of our portfolio companies and something that we invested in about 4 years ago. They're at the forefront of the COVID-19 and they've come up with antibodies which are now approved for emergency use in the US and Europe, many other parts of the world. And these are therapies that you get to use. Someone already falls sick with the COVID-19 virus because not vaccinated yet. 85% plus effectiveness against pretty much every variant that we know as of. Historically, the way you would figure out antibodies is you would isolate a bunch of antibodies through whatever means, and then try different ones in sick patients to see which ones were the best antibodies. In this particular case, given the scope and the severity of the pandemic, honestly, Vir and most other companies in this space didn't have that time or the luxury of trying different things out. So what did they do? This is a strictly biotech company with a lot of world-class scientists in it. They deployed their machine learning team, and yes, they have an AI team in the company, to take a look at the 200 plus possible antibodies that they could use in their human trials, identified and shortened that field and narrowed that field and came up with 2 possibilities. And the very first one, which internally we called 7831, which is now the approved therapy called sotrovimab, became the one that is 85+% effective. Without machine learning, they could not have zeroed in. I don't think this was fluke. This was really software and biological sciences. So we are definitely not in winter. I think we are in spring, moving towards summer, and a positive summer where people are using AI for the human good and not necessarily, where robots will take over the world and they'll become a master, which I think you were alluding to in that other bookend of, AI would be bad for humanity.
That particular vision is now luckily starting to fade. That, compute is great and data is great. But I have to ask you, because I know at SoftBank, you have visions, and you have Vision 300, which is, we won't be able to recognize what happens 300 years from now. But increasingly, even Vision 30 years is becoming a long time. So if you look at the pace of innovation, that hockey stick is happening. It's very tough to be able to see what the world will be like 30 years, 20 years, 10 years. It may be unrecognizable. What would AI be like 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now? I'm not going to ask you 300 because I don't think we'll be able to tell.
The pace of innovation is such, Vikram, that the human mind generally will always underestimate the extent of progress, and we will overestimate the time it will take us to get there. If you read science fiction, like many people, and I certainly do, you go back to H.G. Wells's novels of The Time Machine and The Invisible Man, or Isaac Asimov's novels around robotics and other things. You see that over time, many of these things do come to be true. They usually tend to take a little bit longer than what these authors thought, but the extent to which they become part of who we are is a lot more extensive. The space travel has become very big right now. It is going into space with both Bezos and Branson doing it in a span of 2 weeks from each other. I went back and I saw one of the interviews that Jeff Bezos gave in 2000, and he talked about humans going into space sort of commercially, like you and me, in 20 years. And he kind of got the timing right, which is very uncanny, because typically, when people say that, it's usually maybe 40 or 50 years. Elon would talk about flying cars 10 years ago. We are clearly not there, but we are, much closer to autonomy. So I don't know if we should sit here and imagine what 30 years would look like. We should rather focus 30 years from now would look like. I think that we should focus our time and energy on ensuring that what we are building is humanistic. It is transparent, that AI is being deployed for the good of all humanity and not just certain sectors, which folks just call most likely. And that's where I would be focusing our time. And if we do that well, in 30 years from now, we will have a much better, environment for all of humanity, all 7+ billion people on the earth today, and growing at whatever rate we are growing.
So I'm going to start asking you some of the problems that perhaps would be solved by AI in these 10 years, 15, 20 years. But before I do that, I mean, just the nature of AI itself, I'm just curious, because everything that we've seen so far is narrow AI, right? It's like it's not generalized AI. It can't really replicate humans at this stage. When you get to human level capabilities or GLI, that sort of a thing, there's always the possibility that at that time it becomes super intelligence very fast, which is where the scary scenario I was alluding to a short while back comes. Is that at all a feasibility? And is that something which people like you and others at SoftBank are saying, well, we've got to guard against that. We've got to watch against that. We've got to be a little careful as to what we're doing in these fields. Or do you think that's not a possibility?
It is a possibility, but I think that we also have to be minded about the fact that humans are not static either. So even as software is developing, our brains are developing, right? If we I always look at the next generation, like my children, and I'm like, wow, at their age, they're so much quicker and smarter and more thoughtful and intentional about things than I was at their age. And I was not slacking off either. But then you look at the next generation. I was talking about my 3-year-old niece, and she is so much smarter and intentional and absorbing and synthesizing what's going on in the world around her so much faster. So I think with each generation, humans are becoming, smarter and smarter, if I can use that term very loosely. From that perspective, I think we are the ones building all these machine learning and other algorithms. We are training the systems on what to do. And we are going to put the appropriate safeguards in it. AI is becoming, I think, it's not as narrow as we think it is. We may think it is narrow because we think of it in terms of robots or spacecraft or autonomous vehicles, maybe cameras or phones, etc. But it's kind of everywhere that we look around. The one important area in which AI is making a dent is ESG, or better environment for us. At least in the US, and I believe in most parts of the world, we are seeing some enormous changes, and for the worse. Right, where I'm sitting here in California right now, the wildfire season is starting much sooner. That's not great, and water levels are rising everywhere. The planet is becoming warmer. Our agricultural cycles are changing. People are getting floods when they barely got water. People are getting droughts where they used to get plenty of water, and so on. And we have to do something about it, and that cannot wait 30 or 300 years either. One of the places where I think AI is making amazing dent is synthetic biology. So a lot of materials that we use around are brought to us at the cost of the environment. They are environmentally not sustainable. Plastics is a great example of it, which is why we are all talking about recycling and sustainability. But you can't do without this, because our entire ecosystem is built around some sort of plastics. Now we can throw away our water bottles, but that's just a small dent in that universe. It's an important dent, but it's a small dent. Zymergen, which is a synthetic biology company that went public a few months ago, what they do is they take these organic materials that were being created as byproduct of petrochemical processing, and they instead genetically modify, using AI and robotics techniques, bacteria and yeast, so that they would produce these materials in an organic fashion. And because they're organic materials, they're compostable. And they've even come up with a new form of plastic that absorbs carbon from the air. Not only does it not produce carbon while being produced itself, it actually absorbs carbon, so it's carbon negative. So it's things like that that are quickly becoming possible around us. And so AI is becoming very generalized in terms of how it's having an impact that we do, and in very important areas.
So just taking that thought forward, let's look at some of the things that bother us the most right now, right? Health, obviously. The pandemic has really brought everyone's attention to health and how do we stay healthy and how do we remain healthy. Climate change. These are the big problems of the world today. Do you believe that in a certain foreseeable future, we will not be really talking about climate change too much because AI would have found a solution to it? Our health, AI may have found a solution to that. Energy, AI may have found a solution to that. Drinking water, you have unlimited energy, you may be able to, desalinate, the ocean waters. So many of the problems that you're really confronted with today, do you think AI will solve them, in the foreseeable future?
I would broaden it because I think AI is but a small component of technology. And I think technology can truly help us make a dent in many of these problems. There are always two components to something. There are tools and techniques, and then there is intention. I believe that as humanity and as scientists and technologists, we have been creating tools and techniques to resolve many of the issues that we have facing us, whether it is food crisis, whether it is the climate crisis, whether it is the health crisis. At the same time, we need to have the right intention or the right policies. And that's where we are doing disservice to ourselves as humanity. I don't believe that our policymakers and the legislators are doing enough. And that is what is creating the vast majority of the issues. Technology continues to grow at an exponential pace. We have lots of alternatives to meat, but the beef lobby in the US and the lobbies elsewhere in the world are so strong that policymakers don't continue to subsidize things that don't make sense for us in the long term. Most policies, unfortunately, are not created for the long term. They're created for the short term, so people who create those policies can get re-elected. Technologies and inventions, on the other hand, are meant for the long term because once they are in place, they can continue reaping rich dividends for us. So whether it is food, whether it's climate, whether it's energy, healthcare, absolutely, I think the various technologies we have, software and AI being the oxygen in that software, as well as other sensing technologies, hardware, robotics, and many other things that we do, absolutely can help us with the right policies in place.
You're talking about policy and some of those issues out there. There is a concern in some fields that AI has already become too good. Like sort of at editor, we're trying to say, okay, we're going to use AI to move away from television news and a new form of video. Now, we've already seen that AI and algorithms sometimes can be too effective. The social dilemma, they're only showing you content that you should watch and therefore painting everybody into ideological echo chambers. So we're already, I think, in some areas of the problem that we have to figure out. This AI is doing its job too well. We've got to figure out how to put sand in its wheels and make it less effective. Are you already seeing that in some areas?
Yeah, I don't know about making it less effective or more effective. It's probably the right paradigm, Vikram, and I certainly see where you're coming from there. I think it's really about managing bias and data. So, I'll give you a very cliched example. If you told AI or you told your software that, hey, find me amazing engineers. And the first thing you have to do is you have to train that algorithm and you have to say, okay, what do amazing engineers look like? And you show them a set of engineers in your company who are doing amazingly well. And what happens if that set is mostly white and mostly male? I'm talking about the US now. Because we have a massive inequity in terms of bringing women and people of color in technological fields. So the algorithm is going to go look at them, and besides other characteristics, one of the characteristics it may pick up is to say, look, you should be looking for white males. That is wrong, clearly. And that's not because the software is poor and we need to somehow limit it, but it's because the data that we are giving it is very biased. So as we are building these algorithms and as we are training them, we have to be aware, first and foremost, as the creators of this software, of the biases that may be creeping in. This is a very obvious one, and now we understand it, and there are many ways of solving it. But trust me, 10 years ago, when the first set of answers started coming from these algorithms. It's like, why is it showing that? And it took some time for people to figure out where the biases were sitting. I think what we need to do, as opposed to saying that somehow the software is wrong, it's garbage in, garbage out business, right? So software is usually never wrong. It's the way we've constructed that software. And that's why I also believe that humans will always have an upper hand, because the way we construct the problem and the way we construct the tools to solve that problem is always going to be in our own hands. So it's to our detriment if it ends up being the poor thing, but it's really in our power to make it work.
Right. In a nutshell, if I'm hearing you correctly, you are saying that yes, AI is going to be a catalyst for a better normal, and that's good to hear. Now, given that that's the situation, that's what you seem to be saying. Tell us about, I mean, looking at it from an Indian point of view, right? That how do you see the ecosystem? How do you see the amount of AI adoption, the amount of AI innovation that is taking place out here? And if India has to match some of the leaders like the US and China and become one of the major hubs, what would you suggest we need to do?
So, there are always two components to any technological innovation. One, you need the talent. Without the talent, you're not going to be able to do anything. And the other thing is you need the intention or the policies to feed that talent and to nurture it and make sure that the environment is the right environment. India has tremendous talent. There's like no question about it. There's a trio that from the very early days of Google built Google. One that we know a lot about is Jeff Dean, who now runs their AI team. But two others and Jeff and these two other folks work very closely together. They don't like the limelight, so they are not talked about, are Indians. It's Anurag Acharya, who happened to go to the same alma mater that I did several years before me, and Pankaj Khemawat. Jeff, Pankaj, and Anurag are really the three key brains behind Google from the early days all the way until now. And I can give many such examples, right? Like some of the largest software companies in the world are now, the CEOs are Indian, whether it's Satya, Sundar, Shantanu, etc. So we have the talent, which is amazing because that's the hardest thing to have. Now we need the policies and we need the environment to know. And this is where, and I totally understand, India with a GDP of about $2.87 trillion is very fast growing, but it's still not at the same scale as China or the US. At the same time, I think policies that we have like Digital India are somehow not focusing on the 2 or 3 key critical things of where the puck is going to be in the next decade, the next 2, the next 3 decades. So there ought to be more focus on things like genomics in terms of our investment. There ought to be more focus on things like software and AI in terms of our investment. And I think that India is taking its resources, which are substantial but not as huge as the countries that you're mentioning, US and China, and really spreading it a little bit too much as opposed to focusing it on 3 to 5 things. If we did that, coupled with the amazing talent that we have in India, I think this is really our opportunity. Satya always says one thing, he was once asked about Microsoft sort of losing the notion of the internet and really falling behind during the 90s and 2000s. And he said, look, absolutely, we accepted at Microsoft that we missed that boat, but with every turn of the wheel in technology, you get another chance. And your goal ought to be not to look backwards and say, I missed that. Your goal ought to be, what is that next opportunity that's coming? And am I positioned to take massive advantage of it? And clearly, Microsoft did that with the cloud. And it's doing it with other new things that are their way. India needs to do the same thing, right? We cannot look backwards, we have to look forwards.
Right. So, Nishad, for the people who are listening to this, one final thought from you and advice to industries. Well, AI is great and somebody else has to be doing it. You mentioned Mr. Pichai. I think one of the best pieces of advice I ever got in my life was from Sundar Pichai, who said, I was asking him that AI, what's going to happen? Is there really a revolution? He said, AI revolution is going to come when people with domain expertise in their own field say, how can I use AI to disrupt my own business? When that happens, that's when you really get the AI revolution. That really got me thinking. It made me quit my job also while I was about it. Would you broadly agree with that? That is that what people listening to this should be saying? no matter which field you're in, someone's going to disrupt your field using AI. So you might as well be the person who should do it.
I would actually, so Sundar's advice is exactly right. And the example I gave about Vir Bio, which is a life sciences company, truly epitomizes and exemplifies what Sundar was talking about. In fact, I go one step further. I tell people that, look, the life sciences company of tomorrow is really going to be a technology company that happens to work on biology. Okay, so there's only one way in which we can stay on top of the massive changes that happen underneath us, which is be the disruptor, not the disrupted. And if the way to be the disruptor is using software and AI and machine learning, which I think is key, but there are many other ways to be disrupting any given business. So be the disruptor, right? Don't be reactive, be proactive. That's the one thought I would leave with everybody.
Be the disruptor, not the disrupted. And overall, Deep Nishar, fair to say you think AI will be a force for good, not a force for bad.
100%.
Right. Such a pleasure listening to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vikram. Such a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Vikram and Deep, for that great discussion.